Welcome back to our second Facebook Live feed. I'm Devin Price, and this is Matt Browning from Surge Promotions, Screen Printing and Embroidery, and we'd like to welcome you to, hopefully you tuned in to our first one and learned about the contest that we're having, and got a submission in. And today we're going to talk more about what we do after we get the submissions. So we'll turn over to Matt a little bit for that.
Absolutely. So really this kind of becomes the next phase of the T-shirt project, and here with the Madison County T-shirt project, we've taken all of our submissions in and we've considered those. We had a lot of great entries from lots of different kids, adults, parents, teachers. We had a lot of different creative ideas, and so we were really excited to see those, and we'll share some of those with you as we go along. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the four that we're using, and then Devin will actually show you a little bit about how we've kind of merged those together, and you'll see some of that. So some of the elements that we're actually using an element from Sydney Williams' design from Glen Marshall. She's a third grader. She used the hashtag Together Madison County in her T-shirt, and we thought that was great. And we actually had a student named Tyler that submitted his design, and he wanted to use a blue shirt, so we thought that was going to work well with this design. Danielle Martini, she is the mom of some students at Shannon Johnson Elementary, and her husband is also a teacher at Glen Marshall, and she submitted a design that we liked, but she liked the color scheme of kind of a white ink and a dark ink on a colored shirt, so we're going to go with that. And the main piece of our design, which you'll see here in a minute, that theme, that idea was submitted from a mom here in town that has two kids at Model Lab, I believe. But she wanted to remain anonymous, an anonymous submission, but we really like what she had done. We've taken her idea, and we're going to kind of work with that and make a few changes and kind of blend some things together. So I'll actually let Devin take over from here. Once we get all these ideas from customers, this is what Devin and our art team does here.
Yeah. So, like we said, we're going to go over the process after we've kind of come up with the design or the design idea, and how we get that into a piece of art digitally that can eventually be printed on a T-shirt. And I'll also talk a little bit about how we get approval on stuff like that. So if you will follow me over here, we'll look at the computer. All right, so I've kind of got a final version up here, but we're going to skip that for a minute and go back and talk about some of the stuff that we actually work. So one of the first things we do is we open up a template. So we have preformed templates that basically have crop marks, and these help us set it up on, when it gets to the point where it's actually on the press, these help us set everything up. So like Matt said, we really like the light blue color, so one of the first things we do is we'll get our background color. So we have this will represent our T-shirt, so this will let us know how it's going to look when we get it on the shirt. So we kind of designed with the colors in mind from the beginning. So then I brought in my county outline that we wanted to start with, Madison County. And then I brought in what we refer to as inspiration a lot of times. It's things that people have. So these are some of the ideas that were sent in that Matt was talking about earlier, that were sent in by different people that we actually like different parts of. So we're going to kind of combine these together and form our own little shirt, and, using different elements from each one of them. So one of the first steps is, then I bring in, like we decided that we were going to use we're going to use school names, and we're going to use lots of names of places in the county, so I made a list and brought them all in like this. So basically I have all these over here, and then there's no like magic button you can push or anything that puts all the names inside of here. It'll kind of look like that in a minute because I've already done most of it. But we literally go over here. We do a lot of copying and pasting. You bring it in here, we can resize, get the colors we want. And then you literally place it all in here by hand. and resize and go from there. So that's just a quick example of how it works. You know, it takes a little while, especially doing one with this many words on it. But so I'm going to jump ahead a few steps to what I finished. We got a lot of words in there. We've got, of course, the Madison County. And then we threw our little hashtag down here, Together Madison County. We thought that was a great hashtag to kind of represent this, the cohesiveness of the county, and everybody's together right now. So we used a lot of little places, you know, that a lot of people may not even know. Crow Valley, Buggytown, Peytontown, Cal East. You know,
shout out to Poozy Ridge. Got
Poozy
a lot of
Ridge,
friends out there.
yeah, Poozy Ridge. But anyway, so we've got all these in here, and then we like the color scheme of using a dark color and a light color. So we're going to go with navy, and then we wanted to add white inside it. So I can just do a fill of white in there, and that really makes it pop off. Maybe a little too much, so I'm going to tone it down a little bit. So we'll go maybe a 50% white, which kind of will print a thinner version of the white, little dots that allow some of the shirt color to show through, so it's almost like a light blue, but it's still using the white ink. So it gives it kind of a softer look. So when we get the design finished, you know, the next step is we make an approval sheet, an art proof that we send out, a virtual proof. So I'll copy it from here, and we'll take it into our proof sheet, and we paste it in here, get it on the shirt. This is what we actually send out to our customers for approval. So once the artist is done with it, we create the art proof. It goes back to our salespeople. They send it out to their customer for approval. So one of the main things is it says really big down here, be sure to check spelling, because that's a lot of words on there, and we want to make sure they're all spelled right, make sure that all of the information that's supposed to be on there is there. And then up here it gives an information about the name of the project, who's working with it, who the sales rep is, the type of shirt it is, the color, where the prints go. And then over here it will tell us, this says 2-color left chest. It's not a left chest, it's going to be a full front. So we have a 2-color front that's going to be navy and white ink. So this is a pretty good example of virtual proof of what the final shirt will look like. You know, it's our best simulation of what it's going to look like.
Much different than what we were able to do many years ago.
Yeah.
When it was more of a just we'll design it that way, trust us.
Yeah. Used to it makes it really nice that you can actually see, you know, a pretty good version of what it's going to look like. You know, it's not perfect because it is laying on here, but you know, you can still move the pieces around. But you know, it gives it a lot better than it used to be, like I said. So the next step is, once we get the approval, the next step is like, how do we get it from inside the computer into a screen so that we can print it, set it up on our press, and then print it on a t-shirt. So the next step is called, once it's approved, we need to do color separations. So this is a 2-color print. So it's going to have 2 color separations. You're separating the colors. So in this case, we're going to separate the white ink from the navy ink, and then we're going to get that into something we can use to make a screen from. So what we actually printed out, and this has changed a lot too since I got in the business. This is just a big piece of film that goes through a modified inkjet printer. So our inkjet printer only prints in black. It's big. It'll print on really big sheets of paper like this, or film. And this is a specially coated film that allows the ink to stay on here and not just smear off, because it's really slick, but it's coated with a waterproof coating on one side so that the ink will stick on it. So I've gone ahead and I've already printed them out, and I've got both of our separations here. And they look black, and we'll see why they print in black in just a minute. But so we've got this is for the white, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's actually little tiny dots, and it's going to allow some of the shirt to show through, like we were talking about. And so it's going to be like a light white. It'll allow, you know, like it'll look kind of light bluish. So this is the white, and then this is going to be the navy. So this part, you know, has all the words in it. And what they'll do, and now you'll see why we have those registration marks on there. You can see when we get it on the press, we'll use these little registration marks, and it'll line up like that. So it's really, you have to be pretty good at lining stuff up when you get it on the press, and we'll cover that in our third Facebook Live. We'll actually see it on the press and bing. But the next step now, so we've got it on this film, so the next step is how do we get it into the screen? So that's one of the coolest things. And I'm going to burn one. We're actually going to do one live. So we call it burning a screen. It's an old photo term. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But I'm going to go into the dark room. You guys can follow me in here.
And so what we do with these screens, they're actually, more commonly thought of as a stencil. And so each one of these screens provides us a stencil to be able to print an ink color exactly where we want to.
Yep. So we're going to use this, this piece of film to make a stencil. So I'm going to put some tape on it just so it will stick on the screen, and you'll see what that's for in a second. So we're in a dark room, and it's all orange lights in here. And the reason we have to have a dark room and we have to have orange lights is because these screens, if you can see them, they're kind of greenish looking. They're coated with a photo emulsion. So anytime you hear the word photo, obviously you think of light, like in photosynthesis or photograph, So the photo emulsion is a liquid emulsion, which is, it almost looks like Elmer's glue. And it's like green Elmer's glue when you get it out of the bucket. And so we use this little thing called a trough that looks like this. This has some sticks in it, but we fill this up with the liquid, and you scoop a coat on one side, and then you scoop coat on the other side. So they're coated on each side with this photo emulsion. So this is light sensitive, it has to stay in here in the dark room. If we take it out there into the light, it will ruin the screen. Because right now, what would happen is if we sprayed this with a water hose, or if it got wet, the green stuff will dissolve. But once it's exposed to light, it chemically changes to where that it no longer is water soluble, or it will not dissolve out when it gets wet. So what we want to do is we want to block the part that we want to stay open and be open screen, like these edges, with the black that's on the film, the imprint on the film. So we're going to put it right against here, and you'll see how that does. And what happens is when the light rays come up from this machine called an exposure unit that we're going to put it in, as the light rays come up from that machine, they hit the black part of the printout and they bounce back down. But everywhere that the film is clear, the light rays will go through and they will actually expose the emulsion on the screen. So it's almost like developing film, kinda. You're exposing it to light to change the chemical properties of it. So the part that will remain water soluble is the part that's the printout. Okay, so we stick it on here. We have a little template made so that we get them in the right place every time. You want it right in the center. So the next step is we're going to put it in the exposure unit, and this is pretty cool. So this is what we refer to as burning the screen. You don't actually burn it. There's no fire involved. Like I said, burning and dodging was an old photo term. It basically means that you're exposing it to light. So we put it in this machine. This is a very cool machine that exposes these, and it takes 11 seconds. And what happens is this bladder will pull it down into place and hold it really tight against the piece of glass there. The light rays will come up from the bottom. You saw some orange lights, which were safety lights, so it doesn't expose the screen. The lights will come up from the bottom and expose it from the bottom up. This flexible rubber bladder will hold it down in place. And so what it's going to do is it has a vacuum time of 11 seconds, which means it's going to suck it down and hold it in place, and then an exposure time of 6 seconds. So we'll start that. So it actually only takes 6 seconds.
One question we've been asked a lot is whether or not you can actually expose a screen outside.
Yes, you can. You can expose, and way back, or if your machines break, you can actually go outside and expose them in the sun. It depending on how bright it is, it can vary. So you're kind of guessing at it. It's not nearly as precise as this, but there are different ways you can expose them with light bulbs. You know, in lots of high schools that do screen printing, they'll have a little dark room and they'll have just a lamp that turns on, that shines down. It may take it 10 or 12 minutes to expose it instead of 6 seconds. But you know, where there's a will, there's a way. You can any way you can get a light source on it will eventually expose it. So now that we're done, we'll just peel this off.
And I think one of the coolest things about that is that there's something in that, but there's not.
Yeah, you can't see it yet, but now, like magic, we'll be able to take it over here and we'll wet it. Now, you'll actually be able to see it dissolve into the screen. So I'm gonna just wet it and you'll actually see it come in. You can see it starting already. So you can see the image forming in there, and the part that you can see that's the darker green is the part that's still water soluble. So in a minute I'm going to turn on the pressure washer. It's going to get really loud, but it will actually blow this out and you'll see it will go to open screen like on the edges.
Yeah, so that water is breaking down the emulsion and creating that stencil slowly right now. Mm-hmm. We kind of let the water do the work for us for a little bit, and then we add that high pressure water.
Yeah, so you let it kind of get dissolved up and then we'll finish it off. But I'll talk a little bit about the screens. So the screens are, they have different numbers up here. This one's a 160, but basically this is a little nylon mesh screen, and inside per every square inch, in this one there's 160 little squares. So it's almost like resolution on a computer screen. Like if something's 72 DPI, it has 72 dots per square inch. This is kind of like, these screens are different resolutions. So the higher the number, the smaller the little squares, because the bands are closer together, so the more detail you can get. So they go everywhere from like a 90 or a 110 all the way up to 305. So a 305 screen, you can get a lot of high definition in. And this one's a 160. It's kind of a basic everyday screen.
And one other thing is, a lot of people have heard and will still use the phrase silk screen. It's the same concept. The word silk comes from the material that they used to make the screens out of. They used to make them out of silk, and now most of them, at least that we use, are nylon. So,
yeah.
But it's still the same concept, and it's kind of interchangeable.
They pushed color, pigment through tiny openings in material, so it's still the same thing we're doing. All right, now this is going to get kind of loud, so. And that's it.
And that's our magic trick.
Yeah. So that's where we're going to stop today.
You want to show a little close-up of
you can get
what that looks like? If you show it from the other side, it might be...
Yeah, this side. So when it goes on the press, it's going to lay down flat like this. A squeegee is going to come across it and push ink through these open areas. And that's how the ink will get onto the press.
I wonder if we show it up, we might be able to see it just a little bit better.
Well, it's backlit there, might be.
There you go. There you go. That shows it well.
Yeah. All right. So this is where we're going to stop today, and then in our next Facebook Live, we're going to go through what happens from here. So we're going to let this dry, and we'll continue on Friday. Matt, you're going to close us out?
So really excited to show you. This is some of the the early steps of the magic. You know, I think when I first started in this industry, seeing this process was kind of the neatest thing where, you know, you didn't have an image in the screen and then all of a sudden this water just kind of melts it away. I remember that. On Friday, we're going to show you actually putting it on the press and seeing that automate, and that's kind of the coolest thing. You know, whenever we have tours and field trips in here, everybody loves to watch that process. We will be posting the link for these T-shirts here in just an hour or two. We'll have the proofs there available. We're going to have youth sizes all the way through adult 3 or 4 XL. So we will publish that. And if you want us to print a T-shirt for you in this run on Friday, we do have a very small window of time. If you want to place that order, we can get those shirts in here and can produce them in that run. But we'll take orders for quite a long time after this. We really think this is a really neat T-shirt concept. We love all the submissions and love being able to do this collaboratively. It's been really neat. Obviously, been able to use this time to do something kind of out of the ordinary. So we're really blessed to do that. I think we have a couple questions. Yeah.
So the first one is, how do you know which screens to use for designs?
Yeah. How do you know which screens to use for designs?
Okay, so one of the things I talked about was the detail. So like different screens hold detail better. So if you have a lot of little tiny things, like if you have something that has vines or little curly, flowers or something that you want a lot of detail, you would use a higher mesh screen. And if you had just if you just had a big Madison County block font, you can use all the way down to like a 90 or a 110. So the thing is, the 110 screens have bigger holes, so they let more ink through, so they have a thicker feel. So one of the things, the balance you try to strike is getting as high a mesh screen as you can use to let the least amount of ink through onto the shirt to keep your print from being thick and heavy. So,
yeah.
A lot of times you want a really soft hand. It's called the hand, or the way it feels. And nobody likes those big, thick prints that you go out and you're playing softball in and they're sticking to your back or your chest. So
yeah.
The main thing is to try to avoid that.
The other question is, did you guys learn most of this by classes / school, or more like on-site training like some other trades?
Yeah, so in case you didn't hear, did we learn more about this from classes or from school or kind of on the job? I'll speak for myself. I didn't know anything about the industry when I first started, and so it was all brand new to me. So I was really excited to learn the process. In this business, Devin and I are both owners. We've always had kind of a split skill set. I work more with customers. I work more with the sales and the marketing side of things. And then Devin has always been the artist and the printer, and he has a lot of that experience. So that's how we worked well together. But I'll let him speak to his experience and how he learned.
Yeah, I learned, it was on-the-job experience. 25 years or more ago, I got into the business, was hired, and basically worked my way up from, detaping screens, all the dirty stuff, you get real messy, and then you're a printer, worked way up into the art department, became art director, and then, just worked away. And along the way, it was really cool for me to work from the back forward, meaning from the print side forward, because when I became an artist, then I knew all the stuff not to do to make the printers miserable and make them really get mad at you for putting all this stuff that's hard to print. So I like the fact that I had a lot of experience in the print area before I got into the art.
Yeah, and I was kind of opposite, where I started in the front and kind of worked my way back to the production side.
Yeah.
But, I didn't really have opportunities, or at least I didn't recognize them going through school for things like this. I do feel like that it's way more common to have opportunities to learn this type of trade, or at least similar trades. A lot of the schools are, they have classes, they have spirit stores, and they're able to design and print their own spirit apparel. And so that gives them a lot of experience in design. There's a lot of vinyl cutting and vector graphics that people are being exposed to at a younger age. And so I think it's a little bit easier to get into it now than it was before.
One more question.
Yeah.
Why do you spray the screens?
Why do we spray the screens? Well, we spray the screens with water because the water is what dissolves the emulsion. So the photo emulsion that I was telling you about, once it's exposed to the water, this part that's exposed to the light, this part that's exposed to it stays solid. The part that's blocked by the image remains water soluble. So you spray it with a high pressure hose just to get all of the green stuff out. Spray all of the emulsion out so that this is open screen. So everything that looks white here is like these edges. These are called the gutters that are around the screen, the part that the green stuff doesn't cover. So this is open. And in our next video, we'll talk about what we do with the gutters to keep ink from squirting through and falling down on your shirt. So
Yeah.
there's some steps we do. But this, you spray it to open up this part so that the ink will go through it.
So, when you first sprayed it, it's the water kind of starts dissolving that emulsion. But the reason that we use the pressure washer, the actual force of the water going through the screen actually pushes that sediment out of the screen. So it doesn't like just dissolve it completely.
Yeah,
it breaks it down, and then the force really pushes it through the screen and out. And so that's really what creates the stencil. But that's a really good question. So. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Again, Friday at 2 p.m. is when we'll actually start producing these shirts. Really excited about that. So we'll show you an in-depth look at how we prepare these screens and how we set them up and how we print. Again, if you would like to purchase a t-shirt, we'll be publishing links for that. Again, obviously no purchase necessary, just something fun to commemorate. But again, thank you to the folks that submitted designs. We really appreciate that. Really feel good having so many people submit designs and want to be a part of this. And I've contacted some of the people that were using their designs, and we'll make sure to print them a shirt as well. So, well, thank you all very much, and we'll see you again on Friday.
All right. See you.